Hello investors. It's been a good month for the markets, up 4.5%. Your portfolio has done better. We are up more than 5.5, almost nudging 6. So that's another satisfying good month of outperformance and a very good catch up. I read a very beautiful article yesterday. It was by one of my favorite authors, Jason Zweig. He writes in the Wall Street Journal, and I want to share that article with you today. It's about the 7 attributes of great investors. Now 7 is a bit of a big number, right? Too much to cover. So I went down and scrolled and realized that what is that one quality which he rates the highest? And I was happy because the quality that he mentioned, which was the most important for a successful investor, resonated with me. And that quality was discipline. So for me, discipline is a very, very important tool, area which brings out performance and creates excellence. As you know that last year was a challenging year. We are trend followers, so we have been riding growth for many years. Last year was a down year where growth underperformed and a certain section or sector of stocks which were actually decadal underperformers did well. So last year was a very big year of a trend reversal. But as trend followers, we go with the process. We were able to rejig your portfolio. And the important part is that in spite of the pressures of the market, we were able to successfully and without fear rejig the portfolio. That is why the outperformance or whatever that you're seeing right now is nothing but our ability to follow the process in a disciplined manner. So last year was a very, very big test for me. The whole process with discipline, the ability to really follow it. So let me just share some thoughts, the ramblings of what we did last year. Typically, whenever we have confusion, we have doubt, one of the best ways is to put your thoughts on paper, to write about it. And we decided that what we will do is actually write our investment process. What to buy, what to sell, how much to buy, how much to sell, when to book profits, when to book losses. So this whole thing was written. And mind you, it's a very, very painful process because when you write, you bring a lot of clarity to your mind. At the end, we realized that clarity was so important. When you're getting tested mentally, when the markets are testing you, it's very easy to get confused. It's very easy to have doubt on your processes. But at that stage, this clarity acts as a lighthouse. It acts as a beacon of hope. It tells you to know what to do. When you are going through difficult times, your mind is like a sponge. It absorbs anything and everything, and more so the negative things. So your mind is always, questioning your process, wondering what is happening, etc., etc. However, to avoid getting stuck into this whole vortex of negativity when you're going through difficult times is the clarity of the process. So writing down was something that's very, very important. Of course, we are quantitative, so we are able to do it with greater clarity, but you must also attempt. It really will give you a lot of clarity, and clarity is the crux of discipline. If you don't have clarity on what to do, what discipline will you follow, or be disciplined about what? Once we were able to write down our process, we realized that, hey, why not code it? In other words, why not backtest it? I'm a great believer in history. So whatever has happened in history and has been true in the past very often holds in the future. And there is a very beautiful thought which I discovered through Nassim Taleb's book Anti-Fragile was the Lindy effect. You must read up about it. What the Lindy effect says is that for any non-perishable, an idea, a book, a thought, a process, for it to have longevity in the future, it is very important that it should be true in the past. In other words, what has survived the test of time tends to survive in the future. Take the case of classical books, or for that matter, great literature. Books, literature, the great spiritual texts which have survived thousands of years are more likely to survive in the near future than maybe some new thought. So we decided that, hey, now that we've documented our process, how about testing it in the past. So we decided to backtest. What is backtest? Backtest is nothing but you go and you computer code your thought process. Now this, let me tell you, was a very, very challenging thing. It was a 6-month effort. First, you have to find programmers. We use Python as a language. Then you should be able to speak to them. The financial knowledge has to be translated into code. And then you must have good data. In India, good data is very difficult, so you have to clean up data. So we were able to backtest our process, which we had very well documented for the last 25 years. That is the amount of backtest we did. And the important part is that it discovered multiple bull and bear markets. The 2000 IT bull market, the bust after that, the 2008 financial market crisis, the 2020 COVID crisis. So we realized, or we were happy that the process had actually survived all these cycles. Yes, you had your ups and downs, but the important part is that what has survived for the last 20-25 years is more likely to survive in the future, and that gave us a lot of strength in our process. Apart from just the process or the returns, what really also matters is the other variables like drawdowns, risk reward ratio, etc. And this also helped us realize that, hey, you know what, 2022 was a very different year. It was a year where there was a massive trend change, and these things happen once in few decades. These are times when our trend following method gets tested. However, it is important to align with the new trend. We went about doing that. We saw a lot of churn, but the beauty is that our backtest showed us that whenever these churns take place, the years that follow are highly rewarding and of outperformance. And I think that we are experiencing that at the moment. After successfully backtesting the system and being confident that the process that we have will really hold through different market cycles, yet the whole challenge is in the implementation. Just as I said, process, a clear process is half the job. The second half is emotion. And emotions are two, greed and fear. I'm sure you've heard about that. People say that greed and fear are our enemies. But the fact is that greed and fear are also our friends. You have to have greed and fear in your life to actually survive. You cannot banish them. They will always be there, but you really have to overcome them. And for this, I've used in my life, I have experienced one of the most beautiful lines by Warren Buffett, which says that be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. So when you are going through a down market, yes, there is fear, but this is also the time to be greedy. For us, greedy means the time for action, the time for arms. Because when you are going through difficult times, we tend to freeze in our actions. But actually, these are the times where there is a need for action and activity. So in spite of going through a challenging 2022, we didn't really give up. We went about and followed the process. We were greedy when others were fearful. And that is what really plays out in the next trend. The opposite is true, is to be fearful when all are greedy. When the markets are doing very well, there's hurrah, buying the stock, buying that stock. In fact, that's the time where we don't have much activity, because that's the time when you need to do the opposite. So greed and fear will always remain in our life. But the interesting part is that even the back-tested process showed us that the maximum churn in our portfolio happens when markets are going through a big correction or when the trend is changing. So we are greedy when the markets are fearful. And when the markets and the portfolio is doing well, we are actually doing nothing. That is why we are fearful when the market is greedy. And that really works very, very well for me. And that's a big learning that really we imbibe in our consciousness and the way we manage money. Fourth and last is, let me share with you that when you do tests for long periods of time and you go through multiple bull and bear markets, you'll realize that cycles change. And along with cycles change, the fund manager leadership also changes. I read a very beautiful book in 2008-9 called The Greatest Trade Ever. This was based on a great hedge fund manager, John Paulson, who made a killing in the 2008 financial market crisis, who called it right, shorted it and made a lot of money. But sadly, in the years 2010, 11, 12, his fund was a disaster. He was one of the worst performing funds. And it came to realization that very often in our market, as cycles turn, so do fund managers' outperformance changes. So they had used the term for him zero to hero, hero to zero. And that is really what plays out even in our markets. As investors, you're picking the best performing fund, the best performing fund manager. He's a hero in a certain cycle, right? But when you get into him, when he's known to the market, very often you'll find that the performance falls. So from zero you become hero, and from hero you become zero. And that is the nature of the market. What changes is nothing's wrong with him, but his strategy stops working because the market sometimes rewards growth, sometimes it's value, sometimes it's mid cap, sometimes it's small cap, and depending on the scheme or the fund manager's style, they come into the limelight, they get rewarded. So what we realize that as trend followers, as marathon runners, our aim is not to be first in every kilometer. Because if you run the marathon trying to be first in every kilometer, you're going to exhaust yourself. To be able to perform in the long run, to be able to complete the marathon as a winner, it's important to be able to survive the market. So the important part, as our testing showed us, as our style is, that it is not about being the best performer. Very often by the time you know somebody is the best performer, the top is made. Our objective is ultimately to be able to navigate through all the trends. We are not likely to be the zero or the hero, but as long as we stay in the upper quartile over a period of time, we feel that we will actually do the wealth creation journey. That is why we feel our strength is to be able to align with the changing trends. And that is why, my friends, we are trend followers. Thank you.